Folks. So it's week two, digital image making, and this is a go-to training session number 2 for the month. Um, and I wanted to talk to you folks tonight about sort of a topic that's off the menu, so to speak, from what we're doing this month. I saw an interesting TED Talk, I think it was the other day, and it was all about our power of observation. So we're in a creative digital medium, right? I mean, I'm surrounded by cameras and lighting fixtures and all of this apparatus. We're communicating on a computer. We're using all this technology as an extension of our creative brains, right? But the question is, what kind of shape is our brain in to do this kind of creative work? And the demonstration that I saw was about our powers of observation and how acute our powers of observation are. Now, you might ask yourself, well, what does that have to do with anything? And that might be a valid question. And the answer would be this. If you are a creative, where do we get our inspiration from? I mean, the world around us is full of things that draw our attention and maybe inspire us to create something in its likeness or use some aspect of what we've discovered in technique or method or application somehow in a new creative derivative work. And the gateway for all of that is our power of observation. It's our sense of sight, both physical sight and mental vision. To take a thought or an inspiration and weave that into a physical construct like a film or a video or a painting or a photograph or a sculpture or a dance, okay? I mean, we're not limited to our forms of expression at this point. We are multimodal. In other words, we're using, and multimedia, we're using different forms of expression and different materials to express those ideas. And all of that is heavily dependent on our powers of observation. So we're observing to emulate, we're observing to take note and incorporate or integrate something that we've seen, a technique or a brushstroke or an image or a thought or a phrase or a tune, a note. And we are observing those things, and then we are collecting them in our memories and in our portfolios and in our inspirational notebooks or in our some folks keep files or scrapbooks with little snippets of things that prove inspirational later when the creative mind is sort of relaxed and ready to receive that sort of vibe or information. So how good is your power of observation? And it's a really simple trick. Doesn't hurt. It's just a demonstration of maybe how well you are observing something that's in front of you. And what do you see? What do you take note of? And why? So I'm going to show you an image. I'm going to show it to you for about, I don't know, I guess we were given 20 seconds. So I'll give you 30 seconds. How about that? I'm going to show you a painting by a painter called named Magritte, and it is called the Time Transfixed. And it's an interesting painting. I want you to take a look at it for a half a minute. And then I'm going to come back and we will talk about it really quick and see if you get the same kind of vibe from this exercise that I did. I thought it was kind of fun and pretty informative, actually. So let me show you the image now, and I'll be back in a moment. So here it is. This is where you're looking. And take that for 30 seconds and let me know what you come up with. "15 seconds left. 10 seconds. 5 seconds. Okay. So, that's 30 seconds. So, while you're processing what you've seen, let me just introduce you to time transfixed in the words of the Art Institute of Chicago. So, this artwork was created by René Magritte, a Belgian who lived from 1898 to 1967. The actual painting, Time Transfixed, was produced in 1938. The original is an oil on canvas, and it is 57, almost 58 inches by just under 39 inches. It is in the Joseph Winterbottom collection at the Art Institute. I'm sorry, Modern and Contemporary Art Gallery. There we go. So that's it. It says, impressed by René Magritte's submissions to the 1936 International Surrealist Exhibition, the collector Edward James invited the artist to paint canvases for the ballroom of his London home. In response, Magritte conceived On the Threshold of Liberty in the collection of the Art Institute and his now famous Time Transfixed. The artist later explained this picture. I decided to paint the image of a locomotive in order for its mystery to be evoked. Another immediately familiar image without mystery, the image of the dining room fireplace. The surprising juxtaposition and scale of unrelated elements heightened by Magritte's precise realism gives the picture its perplexity and allure. Okay, and once again, that's Time Transfixed. And I am your host, Mike Walsh. Mm-hmm. And so, what do you think about that? So, Time Transfixed, what did you see? So you had 30 seconds to sort of ingest the image and process what you looked at. So we can't really do a show of hands because this is a virtual classroom, but I can ask you as a group or as individuals. My question to you is, obviously, did you make note of the train? Did you make note that the train was driving out of the fireplace? Did you make note of what color were the walls? Did you happen to notice the hardwood flooring in the room where the fireplace is located, where the locomotive is coming out of the opening? Did you notice the mantelpiece? What was on the mantelpiece? Okay, there was a clock. There were 2 candlesticks. And was there something particularly interesting about those candlesticks? Did you notice that there are no tapers in those candlestick holders? So they're basically empty candlestick holders. Did you notice there was a mirror behind the clock and the candlestick holders? Did you notice what time it was on the clock? Did you notice, I asked you about the color of the walls and the hardwood floors. There was some other interesting aspect of the walls. Did you notice, for instance, that it has something we call wainscoting, which is a bead of chair rail about 3 feet off the floor that was designed to protect the wall from the backs of chairs. And then the paneling below the chair rail, which is beveled and mortised, and that's referred to as wainscoting. It was done in a lot of homes at the turn of the last century as a solution to what we now use, say, wallpaper for, or colorful contrasting paint. What color was the hearth? Was it wood or stone? Was there fire in the fireplace? What about the train? Did anyone notice that it has a big plume of steam coming out of the engine? If so, you might have also noticed, for instance, that the train is driving out of the fireplace, but it has no tracks. So ask yourself this question. What did you see? What did you make note of? What did you write down, maybe? And to what degree, to what extent were you observing the image? Did you make note of the train but didn't mention the tracks or the steam? Okay, you're looking for the rough strokes first. Did you notice that the fireplace wasn't burning? Because if it was, that would be kind of tough for that train to be driving out of there without catching on fire, right? So the fireplace can't be working. Did you notice that the tapers were missing out of the candlestick holders? Did you make note of what time it was on the clock, or did you just note that there was a clock in the picture at all? Okay, so the extent to which you cover these details might be the extent to which you communicate creative ideas to art directors and people that you're working with. What details are you making note of? Why? How extensive are the notes and details that you are making note of? And then, how do you consolidate those into the concept that you're now relaying to the folks that you're working with? I thought this was a neat exercise because it has a lot of applicability. We are, in this class, we're creating a lot of digital images. And sometimes when you create an image from scratch, for instance, it's good to work with an actual photograph, if possible, of that thing we're creating so that we can compare details between the original photograph of that thing and the consequential art that we're creating in reference to that thing. But what if it's a dragon? What are the guys on Game of Thrones doing? They can't pull out a picture of a dragon in an encyclopedia with any reliability or truth to it, because we know that dragons are, fanciful creatures. So we have to imagine in our minds, what does a dragon look like? Does he have scales or not? Does he have feathers or not? Does he have a missing scale on his soft underbelly like Smaug from the Lord of the Rings, the Hobbit? Or does he look like a badass from Game of Thrones, like Dany's black dragon, the big guy? Do they have horns or not? Do they have a tail or not? Do they have a forked tongue or not? Do they have, what kind of teeth do they have? What do their eyes look like? So how acute are our powers of observation? What details are we requiring? What details are imperative? What details are variable? What details are superfluous or unnecessary? How many details and of what quality do we require in order for our audience to recognize our rendering to be that of a dragon and not some other animal that might also resemble it, because we've left out certain details like wings or a long tail or horns or whatever. A dragon without horns and wings might look like a dinosaur, So we have to learn how to manage details, remember details, record details, emulate or render details, and we need to consolidate them into packages that represent or communicate our ideas effectively. So use this as an exercise that you can check yourself on from time to time. Obviously, you can't use time transfixed again because you already know the trick. But pick another famous piece of art, or have a friend choose it for you so that the process stays anonymous until the image is revealed to you for the first time. That way you get a fresh look at it. And then you give yourself 30 seconds and see if you can remember all the distinguishing characteristics of that work. And it doesn't have to be a painting. It could be a photograph, or it could be text on the page. I don't know. The point is, it's all about, a memory exercise, and it's about teaching your eyes to see effectively and your brain to process effectively what your eyes are seeing, because there is a there's a principle in psychology that suggests that our mind can process more information from what our eyes see than our conscious brain. So our subconscious sees the big picture, if you will, of what is in front of our eyes. And then our conscious brains, the brains that are preoccupied, stressed, tired, under the influence of stimulants, for instance, caffeine or cigarettes, what is our conscious mind wrestling with in addition to the stimulus in front of it that will basically create filters for information that sinks into our subconscious but doesn't really lay on the surface, where our conscious brain can say, oh, hey, it's purple, not green, and it's round, not square, and it's, it's floating, not sitting on the ground or whatever, right? So that's the exercise, and that's the concept, which is training your mind to see more of the input that it's receiving and processing it effectively, so that we become effective observers of the world around us, and consequently effective creators, emulating from inspiration, from our powers of observation. So I hope you enjoyed this evening's gospel, and think about it. Play with it a little bit. See if any of these concepts transcend your coursework and have any significance to what you're working on, either as a personal project right now or as part of your coursework for the class. Again, the creative was Renee Magritte. The work was time transfixed, and the concept is the big picture. Seeing more than what our eyes see, seeing the big picture, our powers of observation. Okay, so that's this week's go-to session. I hope you enjoyed that sort of deviation from the normal work week, but we'll get back to business here shortly, and I look forward to looking at your skill builds and your projects for week 2. If you haven't gotten week 1 in yet, remember there are new lateness limitations and constraints on how late we can submit work. So if you haven't submitted week 1 stuff for me yet, let's get it in before it's too late. All right, thanks again for tuning in, and I will talk to you soon. Have a good night.